The Blue Jewel.
Chapter 6. Part 8. The rest of the evening passed pleasantly. Arian focused on talking to Princess Nasmarina, who told him the history of her kingdom. Demember was a small kingdom of those that emerged at the beginning of the Age of the Damned. They began to dedicate themselves to mining and agriculture. Nothing remarkable until Nasmarina's great-grandfather found a mine full of precious stones. But a problem arose. The dwarfs of the Dragon Ridge claimed the mines. As long as they only produced coal and copper, the dwarfs had not minded Demember's exploitation. The dwarfs made a tunnel that would link Demember's mines with their own so they could reclaim them. Thus began the first war for Arian, which ironically was not for Arian. The war ended with a surprising result. It ended with a victory for Demember. His grandfather himself, with the help of a small Denka, diverted water from an underground river into the main tunnel of the mine, drowning most of the dwarven army. In fact, a statue of the two was built in the ancient capital of the kingdom to commemorate such a tremendous victory. A small Denka. But before Arian could think any more about it, dinner was over, and the king rose to say a few words. On his first attempt he did not succeed in doing so, for just before he began to speak, a loud ovation was heard, which prevented His Majesty from speaking for a few minutes. When at last the applause ceased, the king began to speak in a tone of satisfaction. Dear subjects, friends, and my beloved family, I have gathered you here to celebrate the achievement of a goal that I have longed for many years and that has finally been achieved. Again applause. The king waited for them to end in a patient manner. We've reopened the southern path, allowing us to establish a trade route with the Kingdom of Beer, and we won't have to rely on Olbiana's greedy dwarf allies anymore. More applause. A defeat of Olbiana was something that was much more celebrated by the inhabitants of Demember. But this was not possible without the help of the mercenaries of the Blue Phoenix Company, faithful allies of ours since always, and thanks to their plan, they have eliminated all the bandits who avoided trade on the southern road. The king waved at the mercenaries sitting around him, and again a tremendous ovation arose, so much so that Aris and Kush had to rise to thank this applause, although both greeted with some reservations. Gosberg, however, greeted the respectable effusively, thanking and blowing kisses to everyone. The monarch continued with his speech. But I wouldn't be fair if I didn't also thank two ladies who took care of my delicate health and that allowed me to successfully complete this important undertaking. The king went to the table where the two young women were seated. All eyes were focused on them. Behind the king appeared two servants with two wooden boxes in their hands that they handed to the Kendali and Arian. In gratitude for your work, I give you this humble gift so that it may always enlighten you on your path. Before everyone's expectation, the two opened the box. Inside were two elven lightstones. They shone with a soft violet color. Everyone was surprised, as they were priceless. It is a small gift for your help in these difficult times. With these words the supper concluded. Arian and Vanus returned to their chambers to rest at last. The Kendali slept as always curled up, while she fiddled with the lightstone. Its operation was simple. One touch and ask for it to be turned on and the light appears. To extinguish the stone was to perform the same procedure. He was surprised that the Kendali left the stone in the box. Perhaps the Kendalis can see into the night, Arian thought. There was a knock on the door, interrupting their thoughts, but the Kendali did not wake up. Something strange about her, but they insisted again. Arian got up and opened the door. Princess Nasmarina stood before her, looking at her with a mischievous gesture. What do you want, princess? I want you to help me. Help? I'm going to try to sneak into the mercenaries' quarters to get a better look at them. Princess, don't do that. If your father finds out he'll be angry. I don't think so, and if you're not interested, what are you going to do to avoid it? The princess let out a mocking giggle and ran away down the hallway. Arian let go of the little box that contained the lightstone and went out in search of the princess. That girl was crazy and could make a good one if she was discovered. He saw how the princess climbed a wall with some ease, and although Arian had some more difficulties, but he also ended up climbing it. When the obstacle was no longer a problem, Arian realized that he had lost track of the princess and began to search for her among the many corridors and rooms in that palace. It didn't take long for her to realize that she was the one who really had a problem because she had gotten lost in that labyrinth. The young woman was still in front of a door trying to remember how the hell she had come to that place, when she heard the sounds of footsteps and voices talking animatedly. Arian did not think twice. He opened the door and went inside the room. The young woman breathed a sigh of relief. The room was dark, but she could make out a bed at the back next to a window, that it was open and that it overlooked a huge garden. But I wasn't safe. Voices and footsteps were heading into this room. What bad luck. Arian ran to the window to get out of the room. That escape route was unfeasible. It was at a considerable height from the ground and also the exterior wall was smooth. She had nowhere to hold on. She didn't have time either. She heard how the doorknob moved. Without thinking, she got under the bed. Hopefully it would be a soldier drunk from dinner who would fall asleep soundly and could leave the room. So he armed himself with patience, and from his position he saw a group enter and light 2 lamps. He recognized the voices participating in the conversation, the typical accent and deep tone in the voice. It was Kush the magician. "Well, what did you think of the dinner?" the magician asked the other interlocutor who had entered the room. "Well, the king is frankly worried, isn't he?" Arian felt someone throw himself heavily on top of him to rest on the bed. The other figure, who must have been Kush, took a seat in a kind of armchair that was located in front of the bed. Kush spoke again. "Not to be. Albiona desires this kingdom. The evidence we have found in the bandit camp is conclusive. Albiona financed these attacks. The Jewel of the South wants the riches of Demember and sooner rather than later will attack to obtain them. And when that time comes, we'll be here to defend them in exchange for a juicy reward. We need to inform Debok of the relationship between Albiona and the bandits of the Deadlands." Kush lit his pipe and started smoking. After a pause, he spoke of one last piece of news. "I'll write to you tomorrow, informing you, speaking of the fat man, we've received a letter from you. What do you want now?" The other voice had a tone of complaint. "Orders, we have to leave a crew of 20 men here. The rest must go back to Almera, but he wants the elite mercenaries to go through Tripulia first." "Crew. The Magic Orders Council wants to hire our services." Debok finds it interesting. The figure on the bed muttered something that wasn't hard to understand. He wasn't happy. After Debok's reprimand, "You don't think much of him." "No, it's not that. I haven't been angry with him. It's that the Emperor directly threatened the entire company, one day. That day will come, don't worry." Kush tried to calm Aris. It was useless. They both knew that sooner or later he would have to face the Emperor. It wasn't Aris' fault that the last revolt on the Golden Plains, the Orcs are unhappy with the new Emperor. The delegation that came to Aris for help did so in the hope that with the Black General all the Orc tribes and clans would unite in the fight against the Emperor, but it was not easy since the Emperor had many allies, although they were becoming fewer and fewer. "We should go to Tripulia as soon as possible, Aris." "Yes, but you know how Gosberg likes to provoke mags, and the more powerful the better. They are afraid of him. None of them are quick enough to recite a spell before one of their daggers reaches them. And magicians are wary of anyone who might question their power. Do you distrust it? If the Denkga wanted us dead." Something interrupted the conversation. Arian started to get nervous. Something wasn't right. She felt someone pull her feet out of hiding. Perfume of roses, typical in the court of Demember. Arian was white. In front of her was Aris and Kush watching her. Kush helped her up. "Are you okay?" "Yes thanks, I can explain. The princess wanted to sneak into the mercenaries' quarters. I went after her but got lost and ended up hiding." "Don't worry, the princess is already in her chambers." "It got lost and ended up on a block," Aris said with a certain amount of anger. Kush took Arian's hand and led her out of the room. They didn't talk about anything until they reached the young woman's chambers where the Kendali was waiting for her. Arian reassured Vanis, said goodbye to Kush and lay down on his bed. In the end it hadn't gone too badly. If the mercenaries headed to Tripulia, maybe she could travel with them. She smiled, luck seemed to favor her.